So if I were to share one sentence, it would be to try your best, whatever that might be on any given day. So we all have off days. We all, back to leadership, trying your best, just sharing that.
What's the 5 Ps? Do you remember it?
Proper preparation prevents poor performance.
There you go. It doesn't matter how much money we get. If we don't close, it's no money, right? So no close is no money. I'm everything that I am because of my dad's death. And I wouldn't be as successful without his death. Hello. This is Jason Stratton. This is the Jason Theory. This is episode 11, year 1. Feels like year 14 and episode 1. But I'm so excited. I think this is going to be a really interesting episode because all of us who are parents want to be parents, or maybe think that people that have kids that are involved in travel sports are nuts, because I get that too. We're going to talk about kids sports, where it is, lessons learned, and really hit like kind of what we always kind of hit on is being self-aware and how that will progress your children and yourself in life and in business. I am joined by Jared. Jared, Ashe is what is your full
title?
Full title.
I'd like to be known as a coach first, but yeah, so I'm the director of the city program of Play Hard Hoops.
Okay.
Been in the position for about 4 years, and a part owner, and also have a separate LLC called Essential Hoops, but Play Hard's is the main, and then I coach at Mount Carmel High School as well.
That first day coaching and seeing all those kids in front of you, what was it like? What was it? You were anxious? Did you have like a rah-rah speech? Did you? Were you? What was it? Rockney?
Yeah.
What was the first day like?
Yeah, it's good to get motivation from you name the movie. You just got to watch a couple of YouTube speeches.
Yeah.
Al Pacino any given Sunday.
Oh my God, that's the best one.
But this is 7th grade basketball. There's no cuts on this team. I of course nerves or anxiety or butterflies, but in a really positive way. I think because I cared a lot. I was a little bit in shock out of my own crisis into this transition of a completely new opportunity. The pay was going to be a little bit different, and for this winter stipend, wasn't quite sure what I was doing just yet, except that I was giving back through a game that some of the best people in my life, the best memories, and some of the toughest people were coaches. Where I still call them coach. The people in my life that I met was young, so I felt some of that that connection, that flow between when I was young and now I had that title as a coach.
Nice.
Yeah.
When you transitioned over to Play Hard and you started directing a huge program and then eventually putting together a travel program within. So you basically, which most people know, you basically started, and that was more of a house league. It's basically a self-sustained league where kids come, development, people that are, starting out in basketball, middle basketball, advanced basketball, all in the same place, and starting to put them all together and have great leagues and development and stuff like that. When you were starting that and expanding that process, what was the biggest hurdle with being able to mix players that didn't know how to play with players that do know how to play? And what are the conversations that you have with kids to let them know, hey, listen, you were at this point at some time. You were a neophyte. You're here now, and how that all melts and works. What's the hardest part of that, especially with kids who don't understand that concept?
Yeah, it's an interesting line as a hopeful leader to be useful or helpful to families that have to make these decisions. Basketball should be for everybody. It is for everybody. And I enjoy that we have programs that offer that it doesn't, there's a lot now at the youth level. You can hop on social media and see the superstars from the crib, and the pressures that you could feel from that. the house league and where we started before we really started to grow in the travel business, there's a mix for what we try to offer. First off, the fun and joy of it all. The travel program is obviously for players that we are seeking to develop for the high school level. I think that's a natural progression from youth basketball. One of my biggest goals or joys was, can I represent my town in Connecticut and play high school? And you get that feeling. I get that with the kids. But it's important to make sure that those conversations, the cuts are going to obviously be some of the toughest things you ever deal with. And there's still, kids change so much. There's so much development that can occur in these ages where we've cut kids and they come back into the program. They make a team in another season. And then just because you're not on a travel team doesn't mean you can't love this game. Or if you're on the travel team, that's the best place to develop. We could go out to the park and play one-on-one or do a skills session. And that could be the best place for us over a month to develop than going to Aurora to play games. They're both important, but there's a lot of ways to develop.
For kids that don't make travel, let's say they get cut or they go to a house, are there conversations that you have with their parents in terms of like what are the hard conversations in terms of like saying, hey, your kid's not there yet. This is what you need to do to take your kid to that space. And, are there issues with parents when you say that?
Sure. It's important to communicate properly. I try my best throughout each season around cuts in particular, which is a very transformative moment, to email the families directly with some input. Some of the kids and families I've known well, and it's not an easy job, but I also have to be, we talked about it off air, the strengths and weaknesses of a person, of a player, and trying to share that in the email and then offering as a resource in a positive way to keep working, that this isn't obviously an end of a career, or that maybe we made a mistake. Maybe they should be on the team. So keep going, and here's some ideas of how to get there. A lot of the improvements, the easy stuff fundamentally. It's tough sometimes to talk about toughness. If I see that toughness or attitude, those are some tougher conversations to have, because you have to be honest about how competitive this is, and some of those intangibles have to be there. It's what I look for. I want tough players. I want committed, great listeners. And I try to share that in a gentle way if that's what I saw in a tryout that maybe was missing. But you only see him for an hour sometimes, an hour.
Yeah. I think we talked about too before we started that, as a parent of 3 boys, the hardest thing that I try to make my kids self-aware, but at the same time, I think parents need to be self-aware, and that's been my biggest growth as a parent, is self-awareness of myself and self-awareness of who my kids are, and not being delusional of X, Y, and Z. And I think that's a really tough thing to do. But once you sit back and you're like, okay, this is who they are, and I'm happy with who they are. What are their strengths? And let me coach them to the strengths. And I'm not talking about sports. I'm talking about like, hey, you're a great mathematician, or you're great at, listen, you don't have to be an athlete, right? You could be great at art, and having a parent be self-aware that that's what their kid does. And I think a lot of the problems that we have with youth sports and travel is parents not being self-aware. And, what kind of steps, being a coach, and especially being a coach at Mount Carmel at the varsity level, you're going to see kids from the start all the way to D1 kids. How do you communicate with parents who are listening to this and who have kids? How do you communicate with them for them to be self-aware of who their kids actually are? I know that's probably a PhD question, but we all do that, right?
From my own experience, it's self-awareness is probably a lifelong process. I mean, back to the crisis I felt when I felt so stuck in the financial industry. There was some self-centeredness to the whole thing, and that I felt that, while I wanted this self-awareness, I wanted to achieve this growth, I also wasn't going to do anything about it. I spent 2 years not doing anything about it. I spent 2 years sitting in misery, I guess. And looking back on that, the joy is that I did do something about it, and I don't want to stop that. I want to keep growing, and self-awareness conquering yourself, whatever daily spiritual reading I might have, might be harder than anything else you'd have to do. Looking at your own thinking and being honest about it. Passing that on to families or kids is that I hope I can transmit that, because I love basketball and I bring a lot of intensity and energy to it. I'm getting old, so we'll see. I'm starting to prepare the kids for my gray hairs eventually. Not that you have any hair, but so it's not easy. The consistency, the discipline is to try to put together repetitional growth, repeatable growth. I can share that with families. Hopefully, we met when I was on the court 5 years ago. I hope you would see that. What still burns for me is a lot of care for our sessions. On a daily basis, what we're doing, what our programs are. I can't always be there. I can't always be the coach. It's my favorite thing to do. At the highest level at Mount Carmel, it just keeps getting more advanced, more talent. And you have to be able to see that at a young age and understand the progression of how you would get there, I guess. Skills in competition, skills in competing is the way I would push somebody.
How do you tell somebody who thinks they're the world's greatest shooter, but they're more of a slasher? Like, how do you tell people this is what your strengths are, even when they want to do other things? Like in anything, and like coaching, at some point you're going to have children sooner than later. And like, it's tough to tell somebody who you care or you coach, hey, listen, these are not your strengths. These are your strengths. Work on those, but this is the path that you need to take. And then this is your place within this team, and to accept that role. Because accepting roles for kids, and when parents don't understand either, and this is the funny part too. So I'm going to cut away for a second. We're going to come back.
I'm ready.
We were at travel. We were for not for basketball, for baseball, and my son. We were talking about my son plays third base, and most travel kids, most of your best throwers are all third basemen because it's a long throw. So when you get to the travel end and everyone's made a team, we're all sitting down as dads, and they're all like, okay, what position do your kids play? And 7 out of the 10 all played third base. And all the parents are like, blah, blah, blah. And I said, hold up. I said, everyone that's here was a stud on their house team. And all the studs play center field, pitch, or third. Normally. There's some shortstops here and there, but normally those are the strong suits. I go, so we all have to understand that now that we're all good, these are the positions that are going to be dispersed. And it's the conversation I have. Like, you can have somebody that crushes at house, getting them to understand their role on a team that's advanced has been hard for me. And I'm sure it's hard for other people. And that's that self-awareness that, like, hey, listen, you may be a stud trader, you may be a stud builder, you may be a stud salesperson, whatever it is, but when you're around all-stars, how do you cope with that? That's the one thing that I think parents, like, that I've noticed, like when you're sitting on the stands with parents, like parents saying, well, he should be doing this. My kid's great at this. I'm like, listen, dude, we're all on travel. All these kids are great, but there's kids that are better than you, and that's what their role is. And that's been like the toughest thing.
Yeah,
that may be a lot that I just said.
No, I think there's a few ways. It's motivational for me when I think about about team building. When you share some of those, because I'm obviously not in the stands, but I had a crazy dad myself. And I know what you're saying deeply. I think role definition. It kind of goes back to your earlier question. It doesn't have to be basketball for the passion. It's summer camp time for us at Play Hard right now, and we have words of the day, and I often frame that. Trying to make it away from basketball sometimes, because it's not like we're going to have 80 campers show up and 80 of them are truly passionate about basketball. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
So I try and share that finding your role or finding your outlet is very important. I would have liked to be 22 and join the coaching ranks looking back, not 32. The interesting part of role definition is, as a coach, or because I played and still play. I got whooped in a coach's game last Saturday with some D1 players out there that I try and hang out with still, but I'm the old guy now. It's important. There's a few things that obviously knowing basketball well. Offensively, great possessions are what matter, which means you need to create a good shot. So you need to be able to look at your team and understand positions that they're filling, who's the one-on-one players, who can shoot the basketball. If somebody has a misidentification of what they're strong with, developing a relationship where they trust you because your energy is so positive, because you're the coach, it's your job to try and identify that for them, and hopefully they understand that. I want it to be sharing it to the player first. I've gotten close with some families, and that's important, but the most important relationship by far is the amount of time we'd spend with the kids. At the high school level, it's every day for 4+ months, and a lot of stuff in the off season. At the travel program or the house league's tough, right? That's 1 hour a week, an hour and a half a week.
Yeah.
So you have to be very concise and simple about what you're trying to communicate, to identify both passion and build that for them, foster that for them, then teamwork, and then positivity around attitude, all in a hope of building character. But it's not easy. But it's a joy when you have players accept their role. And there's so many roles to fill, and the game keeps getting redefined. But you have 7 third basemen. That's not easy for a coach. Oh, and families, everybody needs to play third. There's only 1 third baseman.
Yeah.
So the coach has to do their best to communicate. And I would hope that parents understand there's a lot of ways to develop, and it doesn't have to be in their position. In fact, moving positions sometimes
It's good.
it could be the best thing that ever happened.
Well, I mean, like I always tell Lee, like when you move positions, I said, you're making yourself non-replaceable, right? Because no matter what happens, you can go here, you can go here, you can go here.
I love that.
But it's tough for a child to accept the fact that what I've noticed, it's tough for a child to accept the fact that this is, you may think you're here, but you're here. Mm-hmm. And this is what you need to do here. This is what you need to do here. And I think that's the one thing that from I never really had that problem. Like Lee was pretty much accepted wherever he wants to go. But then I have other children who are a little more stubborn.
The middle child.
Yeah, and this is my role, and it's like, hey, but it's been interesting. Like it's been interesting talking to children and talking to parents and seeing how they act and sitting back now. A lot of people have their first kid, where I'm on my third. And it's interesting seeing a parent with their first child at travel and thinking the world's going to end. And that energy makes it to your children.
Sure.
Like that non-positive energy that, hey, that this person's doing this to you, this person's doing this to you. Sure. It's negative. And if I could go back in time, man, I would change like 4 or 5 critical things that I've said in my life. Like everyone would, right?
Sure.
But like things that I was like, man, this conversation went this direction. If I knew what I knew now, this conversation would have went this direction and would have been so much more constructive to my child. Other than like, hey, and these are probably the conversations that you have to your players. Other than like, hey, you deserve that spot. It's like, hey, there's other spots and you can shine doing this and you can shine doing that.
Yeah.
Like for Lee, I'm like, hey, dude, play tough defense, rebound, and communicate to your teammates.
The simplicity of that.
That's it.
And
find your spots.
And that's what we do in development, and that's what I don't know exactly where this will all go on the coaching end. I'm still kind of fleshing through what I could ultimately see visually for myself, and on the joy level of what I've experienced the last 5 years. The idea that these players are coming to you, and it's not like inexpensive for some of these things, so the families are putting a big role on you. You're going to learn a lot about your kid during these experiences. I've had moms come up and they've seen their third grader cry for the first time over a loss, and they're almost embarrassed to that extent where they haven't seen that side of their child yet. Maybe it's their first one, and they're so competitive. They're so into the winning and the losing of the scoreboard. As I am, I want to cry sometimes, and being there to the experiences you get, it's obviously okay to cry at any age, but as a third grader, and then trying to, for a parent, I can only imagine, where was this side of my child? Or worse, maybe a side they don't really, not just the emotional side, maybe something they didn't expect to see, a physical altercation that isn't okay. Talking back to a coach that isn't okay. and how important, like you said, those crucial moments that you remember that could be growth moments for you, and sometimes you fail. You don't get it the way you would have wanted.
Yeah.
I don't have kids yet, but where you get that wrong. But as a coach,
I'm ready for the third.
Yeah. Well, I know
I've
what you
screwed
mean.
up enough.
I know the failures. It's not. Yeah. I mean, my sister has 3 boys. It is interesting on the youngest. You've been to the puppet show and you've seen the strings a bit, I guess. So you're maybe a little bit looser. You understand a little bit more of what the pathway is. But it's also a completely new being.
Yeah, I think I've gotten to the point now where when I talk to parents, and a lot of parents are like, we're thinking about travel. What do you think about this, Jason? What do you think about this? And I'm like, listen, it's an opportunity for your child to take their passion to the next level, and to be with other people that are at his skill level.
Sure.
And I know one of the big things that kids that are elevated and that are playing with kids that are maybe sometimes a little bit not at their level. I think a great teaching moment is saying, okay, this is what your team is. What are those player strengths? And if those strengths are not what they're doing, how do you coach those person? How do you talk to them on the court, on the baseball field, or in life? This is what you're good at. Let's put you in this position, not as a coach, but as a child, as a kid.
Sure.
Hey, this is what you're good at. Why don't you do this, this, and this? I can do this, and we can do this, and we can put this together and win.
Kind of goes back to the self-awareness part. I hope to develop and create, but through the communication where somebody knows themselves better, and that help when you have the extension of coaching out on the floor. It's when I was an athlete and it's at the high school level, I would often get that moniker that I'm another coach on the floor. I'm a coach on the floor because I knew our team and myself and what we're trying to accomplish so well. It's so cool when and it doesn't have to start. It's not like you have to be old to be a leader or in high school or in 8th grade. It
absolutely.
Could start at a young age. It's one of the great feelings I have is when you see that develop early with great eye contact, with their listening skills getting better, with them understanding their strengths, with them, with hard work and effort not being something we have to worry about with that kid. It's going to get somebody better in whatever they might do, in whatever their role could be. I used to play striker I had a great soccer career at Wesleyan University. I was a striker for 2 years and put on about 35 pounds of weightlifting and alcohol. And at McDonald's, the self-discipline went away when I went to college. And my junior year, I was still playing up top. I was okay, but I had put on all this weight. My speed turning and going toward goal with my back to the goal was just not quite what it used to be. And I just wasn't taking off like I did when I had a great freshman year. And my coach brought me in. There was an injury to one of our center backs. And I'll remember it was very quick. I don't know whether I would have done it that way, but he said, Jay, you're going to play center back. You're moving to defense about 5 games into the junior season. We're starting you there for practice today. And basically that was the end of the conversation. It was probably, back to true, cool athletic moments. This is Division III soccer, but I became an All-American center back. Our team won the conference championship that junior. We made the NCAAs my senior year. I probably should have always been a center back. And a coach made that decision. So, in the joy of sports, even at a Division III level.
If you would have made that decision to a player, wouldn't you say, hey, listen, we're going to move you here, and these are the reasons why. This is why I think it benefits the team. Coaches don't do that. They don't say, hey, listen, we're doing this because of X, Y, and Z. And they just do it. And to kids that are under 15 or 16, that's a tough thing to take.
Agreed. Yeah, communication. This is on any team and anything you do in any unit, family. I've improved in this area with my family, and it's helped. And after leaving the financial industry, coming over, communicating even with the youngest kids, even being able to develop that relationship on why we're doing something, whether it's at a practice session, a skill session, why you're in that position, what we see from them. It's fun because it actually empowers them a lot. And it's not always easy. To your point of bringing that back to the parents, I hope that they can either see it or that their kid's enjoying it so much, or they see it on the court in the games.
Yeah, because when they get in the car, if the parents start chirping to their kids, it's through them, right?
Oh, yeah. No,
but that's the problem. and I know a couple times I would say something, and if I could go back, be it baseball, basketball, I'm like, man, I shouldn't have said this. I should have said this.
Sure.
And then you just keep growing as the kids do. You grow as a parent.
Well, what are you trying to accomplish in that conversation? Because there's so much emotions that can run after games. So being constructive there is difficult. I get that. As a coach, sometimes after a game or before a game, or what do you say, or what do you want to, what do you want to pass on to the kids? Sometimes just being there, present, and not saying anything.
Not saying anything. Yeah,
it can work.
It was interesting when Will was here 2 weeks ago and we did this. I was like, "What's one?" And on camera, I go, "What's one thing you do what's one thing I do that you hate?" He's like, "When I lose a close game." And you tell me to get better with the ball.
I heard that. Yeah,
He's
know.
like, can you wait a day?
Sure.
And those are the things that I think of in the past. I'm like, man, there's sometimes, and my wife tells me too, there's sometimes where I just don't say the right thing. Like, it's like, and I can't, like, the perfectionist in me, or like the person that wants to drive them. Like,
It's hard to restrain.
It's hard to restrain for me.
I know.
And I'm like, I shouldn't say that. Or it'll come out and I'm like, I didn't mean that. And I'll apologize. I said, listen, I shouldn't have said what I just said about you're hitting, you're running, you're shooting. I'm sorry. I said, let's just scratch it from the record.
That's good. I think owning that, the perfection of it all. I try to remind myself in the levity of it, don't take it all so seriously sometimes.
Because you lose the kids too. Like it becomes not a sport.
It won't be about the scoreboard over a long haul. It won't be about that at bat.
Yeah.
Or that they were shooting too much. I hope in 10 years that I'm away from the investment around that as much as I want to win or whatever that would look like, whether it's a third grade basketball game or high school. But to be there and be present with someone when they have to figure it out themselves a lot. So getting them to talk and communicate is important. I don't want to be the only one talking as a coach sometimes, and then as a parent, if I'm that one day, trying to have them be able to communicate.
Yeah,
It's interesting.
It's interesting how you see things. I was like, one time, I don't know, Will was shooting the living daylights out of the ball, but it wasn't hitting, but was shooting. And I just looked at Brandon's in front of ours, and I looked at Brandon and I said, man, I wish you would stop. And Brandon looks at me and goes, no. He's like, he seeks out the basket. He goes,
let it fly.
Let it fly. He's like, the shot will come. It's like the tough part is getting someone to have the confidence to go to it. Yeah. And I was like, okay.
Yeah. No, I think there's
part of. Different way to
I've seen Will let it fly. I think there's some hunting to that whole thing. There's some naturalness to what a role could be, and even if it's not going in, when it starts to, that's the development side.
Yeah, and just like in me, just as a parent, shutting up and being like, hey, let's just sit back and let it develop.
The emotions in some of those gyms, even because travel basketball wasn't around as much when I was young. Really, by maybe 7th grade, you would start.
We just had 5-star.
Yeah, I went to
camps.
I went to 5-star basketball camp in Robert Morris, and those were. I mean, talk about development. If you really committed, those were some of the best weeks of my life. And even we didn't have cell phones back then. I had to call my dad crying from a payphone. But there is a lot of growth in those gyms. But the emotions, especially from the sideline, are interesting to see. Yeah, I know. At the high school level, it kind of goes away a little bit because hopefully parents have let go enough by that stage where they understand, they've seen it, and they understand that it's time to turn it over to the high school staff.
Yeah, I'll be in the stands now, and because I've been doing it so long now with kids, I'll be in the stands and parents around me are all freaking out and screaming and this, and I'll just look at them and go, listen. He goes, Lee's house team is 0-7 right now in baseball. Okay. And I could not be happier the season they're having because everyone's developing. He's pitching it's like I look at it differently now. Like, all right, this is the fact that he's 0-7 or 7-0 will have no bearing on his life ever.
Agreed.
But what's happening within that 0-7 and 7-0 is everything. Like, how's he developing? How are the pitches falling? How's he hitting? How's he running? How's his attitude?
Sure.
Those are the wins and losses, not the actual paper wins and losses, which is tough for parents to
I hope
put
that's
together.
the parent awareness that we can all have.
I just got it.
Well, yeah, don't
after 6 years.
Keep going. Don't lose it.
Yeah. And now I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think that's what could make it fun about the development side of it all, because I mean, there are moments where I think I might hurt a ref, and I have to, in that acute time of I think I'm feeling rage about a bad call, remember what we're ultimately trying to do. Or when you're an 0-7 season in a summer, I mean, how cool on how many learning lessons you can have if you still grow and develop.
I
love the game
I literally would not trade this season for any other season in terms of like overall development.
And that's kind of the good joke
for everybody on there. And I actually texted the coach, and I'm like, listen, and he's like, is Lee available to pitch this weekend? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, we're gonna make a run because the playoffs is Friday. I go, man, I got your back. Let's do it.
Let's go.
And I just said, hey, listen, don't worry about the wins and losses.
Yeah.
And I'm like, everyone is learning to do their position better and better and better. And we have a weaker team, and we know that.
Sure.
So it's like, let's just work on ourselves.
I try and share.
And it's been
that.
great.
Yeah, I love that.
And they all smile after losses still, because they're all like, the parents have the same like, hey, let's just work on.
Well, maybe they're outperforming. To your point on talent, yeah, I obviously 0-7 is 0-7, but you can have an amazing team with high expectations and go 25-5, but maybe you were supposed to go 29-1 and win states or whatever that is. I guess that would be underperformance in some way.
Yeah,
Lose that on
you're right, exactly.
So maybe 0-7, but with the development they're having, the joy, the smiles, the fun with the community. That sounds, I almost want to come watch this team.
I've never seen kids like have so much like, and they have each other's back.
Yeah.
And they just have
cool.
Yeah, they all like the clubhouse has been so good. Like they don't turn.
Yeah, they're committed. I think that it sounds like they might have a great coach and some good captain and some good leadership.
The leadership is everything, right?
Yeah.
So
that's really cool.
So Play Hard this summer, you guys you guys are just expanding.
Sure.
Incredibly. First off, here's the biggest problem about knowing Jared is that every other coach that my kids have, this is my wife's side. Every other coach that my kids have are awful.
Thanks.
Not awful, but like
probably all those COVID workouts.
I'll be like, where's the passion? Like to the other coaches. And Nikki will look at me and she goes, everybody can't be Jared. Yeah. That's literally, we had that conversation a couple of days ago because we were talking about how we can't find in the baseball ranks. I'm like, man, we really need a coach this in travel, blah, blah, blah. And she just said it. So the passion is there. And because Jared has such an incredible passion and it like parents see it, everyone sees it, the program has just exploded. So go into a little bit of the details of, I know I saw the email this summer, you guys your summer program, which is the camps are awesome. The house league, I will tell you parents, like anyone can play. There's a spot for everyone and everyone finds a role. There's development leagues during the week, which are fantastic. And then there's also, which is great, a travel program for those players that want to take their thing to the next level. So the membership, the amount of people that came through the summer camp this year was awesome.
Yeah, we're selling out our youth programming now. It's really exciting to see. Summer camps are one of my favorite programs because the amount of hours you get consistently in 1 week. So there's something that can develop on the court and then hopefully go off it. Yeah, it's exploded. It's really cool to see.
And the women's basketball, the girls' basketball.
Yeah, we started our girls' basketball with the Warriors program with the travel teams, and I helped coach some of that. I have a great partner in Coach K, Michael K, who joined us. He's a teacher at Old St. Mary's, which is a great school in South Loop, and he's got a nice accent. He played in Australia at high-level state basketball, and now he's the freshman A coach at Mount Carmel. That's some of the fun team building for me, too, is meeting other coaches and trying to learn from them and share from my end from them. It helps motivate. I don't know exactly what, the Play Hard end. We're going to start adding high school. I love coaching the most, so I'm trying to keep filling that. Obviously, Mount Carmel really helps on that end. But yeah, between the house leagues, the weekly skills workouts, and now the Warriors travel, there's just great opportunities to again, basketball being for everybody, to come out and I guess experience what we're trying to provide and then to develop.
And I know all the coaches that are there, and they all take the same attitude that you have, and I think that's. I mean, there's always a saying like, it starts at the top, and I just want to say that it does, and everyone has the same passion that Jared has from the top to the bottom, and there is no one in there that doesn't have that passion and the love for kids, and I think that's at this level. I think no one's going from 7th grade to the NBA. Not yet.
Maybe on Instagram. But,
maybe not yet. But
no,
I think
correct.
I think the one thing about Play Hard and that program is that it is about creating a fun environment, because if it's not fun, I'm telling you right now, as a parent, once it's not fun, the kids don't want to play. And I've had those moments with my kids where they're here or there. When the passion for the kid and the fun is there, it's always there, and they want to take it on. The kids are a sponge, and as long as they're having fun, man, the sky's the limit with all the kids.
Those are my favorite emails or check-ins from families.
Yeah.
It'll always be that way. I can usually tell when I'm having fun, when I'm still feeling that passion, and then when I find these great coaches that are friends that provide that to the kids, then I can see it in the kids. I see it in their development. I see it on a daily basis on the court, and then hearing from families that they loved it, that they're working on their game. I give homework in some of our programs. If they'll send me videos of them doing their basketball homework. There's, at least in this small little island of youth basketball, it's cool to provide that service and to be part of that. There's a connection there. And then, same thing during COVID. What a period where I was all over the city doing a bunch of trainings. Obviously, I was over your place. I felt like during one of the toughest periods of our lives. What a community. It was
Yeah,
really cool.
I think it just kept the kids happy. I mean, it was huge.
Which is
sports was huge. I mean, that was the only thing we had as a nation at that time.
Remember The Last Dance? When
Yeah.
they were I was like, it was nice to just put something on and feel like the world's not going to end.
Yeah.
So I know.
What's the best contact information, like in terms of website, in terms of all that stuff, for people to get a hold of you and to see the programs that you guys have?
Sure, yes. You can always email me at coachj@playhardhoops.com. My nickname's Coach J Bone, but not enough people call me that. I'm still working on it. So it's just coachj@playhardhoops.com. Our Instagram's playhardhoops. Always you can find our website at playhardhoops.com. That has all our information as well. And then obviously we bring a lot of the families down to Mount Carmel, connecting the South Side area, and the kids I've met down there with what we're doing up here in North Side has been fun. Yeah.
If you could tell a parent one sentence for a child that's wanting to get into sports, whatever sport it is, and you could give every parent one sentence of advice, and then they have to tell their kids, what would that sentence be?
That the parents have to share to their kids?
They have to.
Sure. I think it would go back to effort. So if I were to share one sentence, it would be to try your best, whatever that might be on any given day. So we all have off days. We all, back to leadership, trying your best, just sharing that. I'm trying to keep pushing myself to do that. I can usually see it in players. I can truly see players that are trying their best. That inspires a session. That inspires a team, whatever that could be on a given day. You had a bad day at school. Hey, how are you doing? Just go try your best tonight. Whatever you got, try your best for that 1 hour, the weekly skills workouts. It's simple, but it's a little mantra for me to push myself, even on the bad days. Just give your best today.
All right. Thank you so much for your time.
This was great.
This was great. And we'll see everybody. Thank you. Subscribe. We are on every single platform, Spotify, BuzzFeed, yada, yada, yada. And we'll talk again. Thank you so much.